Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you wish.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity you have given us to serve our community. Send down upon us the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose we may faithfully serve our city and promote the well-being of all people. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Officer Morris, thank you for being with us this evening. We have a presentation tonight of our fiscal year 2014 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, fondly known as the CAFR. We'll call upon the Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mayor. My immediate left is Mr. Andrew Grossnickel, representative athletic firm of Robinson, Farmer, and Cox, and to his immediate left is Mr. Dave McIngill, Assistant Director of Fiscal Affairs. Mr. Grossnickel is here. You have before you a large presentation agenda, and he's going to review with us the CAFR highlights of FY14. Mr. Grossnickel.
Thank you. I'm just going to go over at a very high level the financial results of the 2014 audit. The first thing that I want to make note of are the three auditors' reports contained in the financial statements. And for your reference on the brief agenda that was prepared, there's reference numbers for pages where these items can be found in the CAFR. The first thing is the independent auditor's report to the financial statement, and that's located on page number 3 of the CAFR itself. And this states that the financial statements are in compliance in all material respects with GAAP. It's an unmodified or a clean report on the financial statements, on the numbers themselves in the financial statements, so it's a good report. The other two reports we refer to as compliance type reports, and they're in the very back of the CAFR, starting on page number 157 with the Government Audit Standards Report that addresses internal controls as well as compliance in relation to any audit performed in accordance with government audit standards. There were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to report related to that report, so again, that's another clean report. And the third and final report contained in the financial statements that's from an auditor's type report is the OMB Circular A133 report, located on page number 159 and 160. This relates to the expenditures of federal awards. We have to, on an annual basis, select a sample of federal programs and test those for compliance with internal control requirements as well as compliance requirements of the individual grant program. And we had no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses to report in relation to the grants that we tested either. So again, that's another clean report. So all three of the auditor type reports contained in the CAFR are clean reports. I do want to bring attention to a couple communication letters that are actually outside of the actual bound CAFR. You should have before you both a letter to governance as well as a management letter. The letter to governance, it contains standard language that we're required to communicate with those charged with governance at conclusion of our audit, whether we had disagreements with management and so forth and so on. It's all standard language in there, nothing of real note in that letter, just kind of things we have to bring to your attention. The other letters, your normal management letter where we have a couple comments and recommendations for improvement. You have not only our management letter, but I believe the fiscal affairs staff has provided you with their responses, management's responses to the couple of findings that we had. The one thing that we also had in addition to the three management letter comment recommendations for improvement was just pointing out that there's another upcoming GASB in 2015 that will go into effect, and that is one that's related to pension reporting. So it'll apply to VRS and the city's portion of the VRS pension liability, as well as the school's portion as well. So that will go into effect in 2015, and there'll be some reporting changes based on that. There'll be information from the actuaries that once the city staff gets that information, we'll work with fiscal affairs in helping implement that GASB pronouncement in the 2015 financial statements for the city. Next, I just want to go through the CAFR itself, point out a couple highlights, both financial and non-financial. The first couple things are a couple of client-prepared documents that the Department of Fiscal Affairs prepares in the CAFR. The first one is the transmittal letter. It starts on Roman numeral page number I, and this goes through a narrative format, an overview of the city, the profile of the city, the economic condition and outlook, and some of the major capital initiatives and things of that nature. I want to commend city staff. They did a overhaul of the letter transmittal to add some new components and kind of update a lot of the structure of it to make it even more informative for readers of the financial statements. So it's a good document to get a good view of where the city is and going in the big picture of things. The other document I want to highlight briefly is the management discussion and analysis document, and that is started on page number 5 and goes through page number 17, and that document is really an integral part of the financial statements because it gives you a good overview of the reasons for different increases and decreases in revenues and expenditures, assets and liabilities, and then overall financial position. So it's good to read that document before you're going through the financial exhibits themselves, and then also to refer back to those when you're going through the financials to kind of highlight some of the reasons for changes and things of that nature. So it's a good document to refer to. The last narrative component that I always like to highlight, just because of the importance of it and how much good information is in there, are the note disclosures starting on page number 41. There's a lot of notes in there that give information on the accounting policies of the city, as well as detail on the numbers that precede the notes in the exhibits. For example, you'll see on the exhibits large numbers for your long-term obligations and your capital assets, and then in the notes you'll see a breakdown of some of the more information, how much is due within the next several years on your obligations and so forth and so on. So it's a good information that gives more insight into the large numbers that are in the exhibits themselves. Next, I just want to highlight a few financial highlights from the year from the exhibits themselves. Starting on page number 29, starting on page number 23 are what we call the entity-wide exhibits. As I've highlighted over the years, there's two different sort of accounting bases in the CAFR of a government nowadays. You have an entity-wide that's a full accrual basis on Exhibit 1 and 2. That brings in your long-term assets and long-term liabilities into the equation, and then you have your typical fund balance-based financial statements that start with Exhibit 3. So for Exhibit 1, you'll see with your long-term obligations included and your capital assets that the governmental activities reported a total net position of $115.8 million at June 30th, 14, while business-type activities reported $65.5 million of net position. And on Exhibit 2, you'll see that those are respectively increases of $3.3 million and $3.95 million respectively, an increase in net position. From a typical fund balance basis, which is a lot of the basis that decision making for budgetary purposes and things are usually made on, starting on Exhibit number 3 is your balance sheet for governmental funds for June 30th, 14. And you'll note that the total fund balances for governmental funds were $47 million at June 30th, 14. Of that, the general fund had fund balance of $27.3 million. And of that $27.3 million of general fund balance, $19.8 million of that was unassigned, while the other amounts were non-spendable, committed, and assigned balances for different purposes. Last year, the unassigned fund balance was $18.6 million, so the unassigned fund balance went up slightly from last year. On Exhibit number 5, on page number 31, you'll see that those fund balance figures at June 30th, 14 represent a total decrease of $17.4 million for all governmental funds, which is driven by the Newport Construction Fund, which is, spending bond proceeds that were received in prior years, so the fund balance is logically going to go down as that project is substantially worked on. And the general fund just had a very small decrease of $201,070 of fund balance. And in a moment, we'll look at some of the components of that general fund balance decrease. On page number 97 is the last exhibit that I want to highlight, just because I think it's one of the more informative exhibits in the financial statements themselves, and it is exhibit number 13. This exhibit is for the general fund, and it shows the original budget, the final budget, and the actual figures, and then a variance column showing a positive or negative variance with your budget to actual for all of your revenue, your major revenues, and then your expenditure components. So you can see that the number that we referenced earlier, the decrease of $201,070, that's located at the end of Exhibit 13. That's the bottom line decrease in general fund balance for the year. You can see that was driven by the fact that while going into the final budget, there was a potential amount of fund balance to be used potentially of up to $2.45 million, that revenues were over budget by $1.35 million and expenditures were $800,000 under budget. So you didn't have to use all that fund balance and only had a decrease of $201,000. And you can go through the exhibit and kind of look at all the different components of revenues and expenditures and see where the budgetary variances came from that kind of led to that that net result for fund balance decrease for the year. Last thing that I just want to highlight are the statistical tables that start at the very end of the financial statements on page number 135. A lot of good historical information to see trend analysis of where your net position has gone over the last 10 years, where your assessed values of property have gone over the last 10 years, as well as non-financial data such as your school enrollment, your population, things of that nature. At this time, I'd be glad to open it up to any questions that council may have.
Are there any questions? Councilor Ellis?
Thank you, Madam. Find it now. I know I just saw it. I thought it was up front. There were two jumped out at me. I thought it was in the Roman numeral 7. Basically, you had said that the revenues were increased by expenditures 1 point increase. So was that to say? I thought we were in better shape than that, but and I am sorry, I should have highlighted it. It's where there's an opening statement to that regard, introductory section. In your analysis or not, but
There is a reference.
maybe it. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and
There we go.
And I think that that's talking about the actual figures, and that contrasts with what I mentioned with a budget to actual, because you budgeted that was, those amounts were, however they came out, they were better than what you budgeted. So while you had an increase of general fund revenues of 1.7%, you actually budgeted for that increase to be lower because your revenues exceeded your budget, and you budgeted for your expenditures to be a little bit higher increase than 1.8%, and because you actually stayed within budget.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of difference between the budgetary basis and that basis.
Favorable in both cases.
So there's a net gain,
Budget to actual. Yeah.
budget to actual, yes. Any other questions? Well, thank you. Thank you for an excellent report. We're delighted to see it to be a very positive report. And how may the the taxpayers, if you will, access this information, Mr. Robinson?
It's available on our website.
It's available on the website,
Yes.
the full financial report.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank you. Item number 5 on our agenda is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, will you please read the notice?
Creating rights-of-way and conveying easements on city-owned property, including Snowden Park, the former Guth property, and the Vepco Canal property required for the widening of Fall Hill Avenue.
Mr. Fawcett?
Good evening. As I Fall Hill Avenue from the Rappahannock Canal to and across Interstate 95. Sorry. There we go. To and across 95, including a new bridge on Fall Hill Avenue across 95, as well as then widening any currently two-lane sections of Fall Hill Avenue west of 95, so that once the roadway project is completed, we'll have a four-lane roadway with turn lanes all the way from the Rappahannock Canal to Route 3, including the section that VDOT widened of Bragg Hill Road outside the city a number of years ago. The project also includes the construction of Mary Washington Boulevard extension from the rear of the Mary Washington Hospital campus to Fall Hill Avenue, parallel to the Rappahannock Canal. That's a brand new roadway in that area. The project is moving forward. It's rapidly approaching the construction stage, and as our purpose here tonight is as part of the right-of-way acquisition stage, there are a number of city parcels along the roadway from which new rights-of-way, utility easements, etc., are proposed and are needed for the project. A good deal of the widening of Fall Hill Avenue, as I'll go in a little bit more detail here in just a moment, will be on city property. So the purpose of this ordinance would be to authorize Mr. Cameron to sign the various grants of rights-of-way, utility easements, temporary construction easements, and such that are needed for the project. With that as an introduction, I would like to point out to you about the four areas of city property on which rights-of-way and easements are needed. Before I do that, I will mention that Assistant Director Dave King is here tonight, as are a number of representatives of the project team, which I will introduce by name if I need to call them up here to assist me with answering questions. To give you your bearings, this first area is the Snowden Park area, out in the area just immediately east of I-95. Tanya, if you'll go a little bit to the left with the diagram there, we'll see the other way, please. Other way.
That's as
Yeah.
far as it goes.
Yeah, I wanted to just kind of see 95 there and coming off of 95. Former Bragg Hill, now Central Park Townhomes, and of course this is the Snowden Park, the current Snowden Park area. The apartments south of Fall Hill Avenue are here. Forest Park, that doesn't sound right. Heritage Park, Park Apartments. The city owns a 25-acre parcel that is basically designated as Snowden Park. Basically, the lines, the blue line here that goes off the diagram and comes back on, the two ball fields, and if you'll go a little bit toward the basketball courts in, Tanya. Doesn't go any further west? Oh, I'm sorry. Basketball courts end to end here that are very visible avenue as you travel just before interstate. Project is of this property be property to rights of way and easements, and that is virtually all Wicklow Drive to the interstate, taking is to the south. The red line here, the future right-of-way city property. The yellow line is a shared use utility that's needed to relocate electric, phone, cable, fiber optic, etc. lines away from the roadway prior to the start of construction of the roadway. We also need to convert this portion of the property to right-of-way. The city owns this property, and because the current Heritage Park Drive is so close to the eastern end of the bridge and will be virtually on the eastern end of the new bridge, the Heritage Park Drive access needs to be relocated. It will be brought across this area and brought up to Fall Hill Avenue to line up with Bragg Hill Drive. It might be a little bit easier to see it on this diagram over here. You'll see how that's Heritage New Heritage Park Drive and come up and line up with Bragg Hill Drive. So a significant portion of that parcel needs to be converted to new right-of-way, utility easements, etc. The second parcel on which, well, maybe I'll pause and ask for questions before I go on, because there's 4 total parcels, and I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Any questions about dedication of rights-of-way and easements on that parcel? Okay, if we can go east then, toward the end of this diagram. As I'm sure you all are very much aware, several months ago, Jenny Lynn Guth dedicated an approximately 27 acres, is that right? Parcel, undeveloped parcel here, north of Fall Hill Avenue, to the city for eventual use as a city park. A very small piece of that property that comes to a point right about under that purple line, very close to that purple line right there, needs to be dedicated for right-of-way for this project. It's, when I say very small, 0.0102 acres, that's 444 square feet, probably about the area of the inside the banister here in this. So a very small part of the front of that property. And I will say that the project will provide a curb opening there, so that when the city develops that property, we'll have the start of an entrance. We'll have to build the entrance into the property, but we'll have a spot designated there to create an entrance into that property. And that, go to the next diagram, please. This is Folly Avenue coming down the hill for this property here, just off the top of the diagram. Represents the Mary Washington Boulevard extension, the back of the hospital. In this area, for which right-of-way and easement actions are also needed. Rectangular parcel is parcel 30 that you have received prior to. It's needed to convert about 400 square feet of that 1.335 acre parcel right-of-way and permanent permanent road right-of-way. And if we, that's about, and if we'll go to the right toward the hospital, last parcel referenced as the Snowden, and that's this rectangular parcel, correct? And between the red line here, line which represents the property line for the parcel, for the Mary Washington Boulevard, that's about 0.3 acres of about a 4.8 acres to be converted to. So about 28% of that parcel. Out and then at this, and by that I mean started this project. VDOT's going to build the road, equipment, so forth, build, and then at the end, back to the city, and the city will maintain, including the rights of way. Converting city property, this, we're taking easements that VDOT will use to build this. It all comes back to the city, rights of way and easements in perpetuity. Different from obviously our acquisitions properties that are going on as well, and those properties, those rights of way will belong to the city project as well. And with that, I'll conclude. Confuse you too much.
Are there any questions for Mr. Fawcett? Councilor Ellis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is on this parcel. Logic behind that, I'm just trying to understand it. And we've got entrances, I guess, main entrances, McCowan, and then off of Route arteries.
Yes.
You know, and given, you know, we've got a lot of foot traffic nearby. We have the new bridge or bike under the bridge, which is a good, but all of this just kind of more pedestrian, just another main artery into the hospital there.
Yeah. The extent of Mary Washington Boulevard project has been part of the city's long-range plan for here. It does provide a third access to the hospital. It provides an access from points north on Route 1 into the hospital and directly into the emergency room, which will be very helpful for times that Route 1 is congested at the Mary Washington Boulevard entrance, as it is sometimes now. It also, this project is also designed to redirect traffic between points west of the interstate to Route 1 and points north in the vicinity of the high school along this roadway and out of the Normandy Village neighborhood, which will become, once this project is finished, will become much more of a residential roadway between the Canal Bridge and Route 1 through the Normandy Village neighborhood, and for which, even if we wanted to, there's no option to increase the capacity of that roadway because it's so close to the river. There would be no option to ever widen that roadway to handle the volumes of traffic that need to be handled on Fall Hill Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to follow up on Mr. Fawcett's comment. This was originally supposed to be the entrance for the hospital coming in and through this area. Cowan Boulevard came as a secondary issue. In fact, if the truth be known, Mary Washington Hospital, or the corporation, was supposed to be involved in dedicating and financially supporting this project years and years ago, and that's obviously fallen by the wayside. But the biggest issue in going through this that Doug mentioned, it's a 4-laner. You got to bring it into Route 1 at some point. You can't get 4 lanes down the rest of into Normandy Village and through, and it made a lot more sense. Also, to give yourself a little space from the bridge on Route 1, which is a highly congested area anyway. So it made more sense for traffic movement to come off from the entrance to the hospital and kind of come in here. That leaves the rest of the Fall Hill Avenue a nice, pristine area where people can do what they do now, which is walk and trail and everything else in that area, and keeps this traffic flow that we need onto Jeff Davis Highway. And that was the main reason for going down this. Again, this was supposed to be the original main road. This was always talked about to be extended. This has actually been talked about even before Cowan Boulevard was a project. It came up in our conversations with Cowan about doing this, which frankly, this Cowan Boulevard, it's not really moving. We need that next route that goes out west, and this is going to. Thanks.
Fry?
Better, thank you. I have a construction, if this is approved or if way, but in if that you could help with employment in Fredericksburg with this type of project, considering to be a long term. We can kind of oversee that we are in our area, and this in general, construction going on in Fredericksburg. I'd just like to see the opportunity to gain the chance to get a start for an 18-year-old kid who just graduated, experience, so on and so forth.
Okay. Let me ask Representative of Corman Construction, who is the contractor of the design. Yes, come up to the microphone if you will. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The folks at home, tape of the meeting, unless you speak.
I think that was.
If there is and they're qualified at certain positions, review them and give them up.
I mean, in the future, of every project that comes across the board for people here, and today. Thank you.
I'll be on Fall Hill, or we'll be set up the construction office. So if there's individuals that, you send my way, I'll be more than likely to. Not a problem.
Sounds good. This
All right.
is making the city better. All right.
About a project, which is the largest single transportation project the city has taken. So, and it's a two. So I think that's for local employees to contribute to this project.
Councilor Devine?
Mr. Fawcett, I had asked you this the other day, but I just wanted to, again, for the record, I've had some finish the bridge over the canal. Had to close the road for that. Just to clarify, this project will not close the project. I just wanted you to maybe go ahead and to that.
That is correct. The factor here is to build this project, which means maintaining a lane of traffic in each direction, is what Fall Hill Avenue is, lane in each direction. Now there will be a construction project way that there'll be flaggers that will stop. The setting of the girders and so forth for the new bridge will happen at night, I believe. And because they're building another roadway kind of parallel to the existing roadway and then connecting it back to the existing roadway, you'll see a lot of activity along the side of the roadway that's not affecting the flow of traffic as contrasted with the complete closure of Fall Hill Avenue for the bridge, for the canal bridge. So we can't say, and would never want to say, there'll never be any impact on traffic during the construction of this project, but there will not be closures of the roadway like there were for the canal bridge.
Okay,
Is that
thank
correct,
you.
Scott?
Tree removal is one.
Yeah, we are talking about, there is the tree canopy going up the hill from the canal to toward Wicklow Drive, and there will need to be some closures, some temporary stoppage of traffic as they drop those trees into the roadway, and then while they're getting them out of the roadway enough to make it safe to travel back through there. That will be early in the project, and those will be announced. The days that that's going to happen will be announced, and the public will be warned of potential delays during that period. But that's probably the primary example and the greatest impact that this project will have on traffic flow in that area.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to this matter? Please state your name and address.
1112 Caroline Street, Ragai Mal Muhammad, Collective Black People's Movement, member 1112, or 1288, and Independent Green Party Chairman of Fredericksburg. Two things I would like this council to keep in mind. One, the theme of the Independent Green Party is more trains, less traffic. So again, if you all need promotion for this project, I'd love if you all kept us in mind. And two is partial implementation of Jesus Sharia law. It's a concept both Christian and Muslim. And the partial implementation on this land, Snowden land, that is owned by Fredericksburg. And wouldn't it be great, a name like Snowden, synonymous with mental health in the town, that this land owned by Fredericksburg, if we developed a mental health, our own mental health on that land, a homegrown mental health from Fredericksburg. And as luck would have it, I have been developing one. It's something you all can look up. It is called the Newest Testament. The first part is Everything's United. The second is the Newest Testament, The Ways of the Force. And it just helps the patient understand the interconnectedness of life, Those books work in collaboration with Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, books 1, 2, and 3. And the combination of all those books create a mental health science that can be developed here, a simple addition onto that land, or the Snowden facility, or if you want to just have it out in the park, have the patients get fresh air, that would be wonderful. If you're wondering about where the funding would come from, somebody in town who's very wealthy, a well-known name, Buffett, the Buffett family, the billionaire Buffett family, has shown interest in implementation of Jesus Sharia law with the gun give back. You all heard about Micah, and I think you're covering it in the meeting today. Micah had a gun give back, and the Buffett family came in and helped out. And it would be a shame if we have people in town like that with lots of money who are eager to fund a project, and we have something here like this development of a mental health science, our very own, and we don't get them in on it. So I hope you all consider that. Appreciate the time. Shanti.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to this matter?
I'm here, I met last year. My name is Marilyn Brown. I live in Caroline County, next to Lake Landor, Countryside Apartment, and I work in the FBI building, but we moving to a new building. And also, when I got off of work, I came down, I was walking to town to get the cab, go back down to the country. And so having it, that all the churches in Fredericksburg is putting that time in to feed the homeless, but then you look around, they are sitting out there smoking weed and everything. So how can the churches take care of them when they are smoking weed, and then they go to Micah cold weather shelter and land up there and want somebody to take care of them, you know? If they can get out here and work, they can get plenty of jobs you can work, do anything, job, construction, they don't want it. If you can smoke weed, stand up for the St. George's Church last night, something needs to be done. So they don't need to take funds, and they need to get them a rehab so they can get their life together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Anyone else like to speak to the matter of the public hearing creating rights-of-way and conveying easements on city-owned property for the widening of Fall Hill Avenue? If there are no other speakers, I will declare the public hearing closed. Council.
Mayor, I'm going to make the motion here, but I want to take a quick opportunity to point out to the public that the was by VDOT, Low Drive, and a bridge over 95 into the project, and we would get to phase 2 sometime in the future. Is today knows what that would improve the 95 bridge and continue it. We would spend millions of dollars and traffic would still be Elliott, who was then the director here of the local, is now of course was instrumental in working to make the project got turned into its totality, and his staff worked with. Big kudos to Cord Sterling on the CTB, who is instrumental in getting this move forward and getting additional. And most importantly, and it's a lot of opportunities we get to do this, and everybody talks about it, is this project wouldn't have been fully funded and moved forward. Partners at FAMPO, who also came to help us make sure we get the funding to make this project a reality. Our colleagues in Stafford and Spotsylvania, the work they did, job in taking a project that was going to be a lot of money and nothing moving into a full project in the city. And I want to, and having said that, in conveying easements on city-owned property, including Snowden Park property and Vepco Canal on Hill Avenue.
Second.
Is there any?
Motion 7-0.
And thank you. The team will be complete. Six is the time that we have set aside from the public. We provide the that's from citizens who have signed up for the start of observe the 5-minute time limit and yield the floor when the council indicates that comments not relevant to instructed or applause are in and out of order. We actually have 3 people signed up. This is George Gray.
Thank you, Mayor Cameron, as well as all council members of the city of Fredericksburg. An opportunity to request an honoring in that from Fall Hill Avenue. Mr. Foster could have stayed here for this presentation. To Martin Luther King. I will be brief, but I have because Monday is being as a lot of people don't act what it's about. I'm going to read to you why we have the house and why all localities, pages of Wikipedia in the nation of the United States why just put the request in. Drive through here, people say, where you are. I don't know the answer to that after years. But let me read this. In the United States, January, honoring a Chief King Jr., a Baptist minister who advocated the use of nonviolent means in Montgomery, Alabama, 1955. Bishop Conference in 1957 and led the 1960 on Washington. Of African American civil rights in the 1960s. He was instrumental in the passage of civil rights which outlawed discrimination, facilities, and employment, and voting rights. King, he was 68. Death that were calls for a national and January 15th, a holiday. Legislation in Congress at 8 that was sufficient block its passage. And legislation making the third Monday in January federal holiday, the first observance nationwide, 6. That's 28 years ago. The day is usually celebrated parades and with speeches by civil rights leaders. That's my be celebrating and honoring. A lot of people don't know why. They just got the day off. In my request to change the name because Fall Hill Avenue is what we want to change the name. Significance is that's not an alternative, a suitable alternative. Jefferson Davis Highway, and I know we're not going to do that. This location without a suitable for the people to see every day travel thoroughfare. And growth begins with change. This also coincides with the new economy of Fall Hill Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Ms. Kitty.
Good evening, Mayor Greenlaw and City Council. 536 George Street, across from the flagpole. Do not vote for the expansion, which rather than addressing the long-term rapidly developing William Street corridor will see to the parking burdens in neighborhoods. We've lived parking has been challenging in our neighborhood for quite a few years, but it's always been event-driven. Concerts and her at Maury Stadium, First Friday, other larger events, the Christmas Parade and Oktoberfest, up our neighborhood. We have never complained about, unless this ordinance passes, having events in our neighborhood to the vibrancy of downtown and our quality. For the most part, we have figured out ways to work around parking needs in our neighborhood. Parking requirements by expanding the downtown will place additional parking burdens on the surrounding every day. Homes in these neighborhoods do not have off-street parking. One thing to adjust if we want to park anywhere near, it'd be an entirely different to have parking on a daily basis. Be impacted by a big. Please take into consideration residential neighborhoods that will be impacted. Predate new development 150 years. Please show older neighborhoods parking district. Thank you.
The next speaker who's Brown, but I believe Ms. Brown, you may have.
Yeah, I mean the same.
Okay.
It's just, all of check into, because when they feed, got people that they be out there smoking weed off from work, y'all stay and have, I just seen from called police enough, I said, maybe the deal with it. That's why I told you.
Ms. Brown. There are no speaker in the public, comments from the public period. We move now to the council. Do you have any item to add to the council agenda? For item 7A, go.
Well, am I able to switch council agenda B?
Yes, you may.
All right.
We'll take 7B first.
Okay. B first. 7B it is the first time for me presenting a constituent, so please, I'm starting off a meeting, so New Year to everybody. Revenue is the way it's listed. What this is Mr. Gray's, and I'm presenting it as his councilman. Mr. Gray's request is to change the name of Avenue to Avenue. And what I'm to the Memorials Commission, which can we forward this request Commission for further as an option.
Thing to do with such a request, yes. So would
Okay.
you like council's approval to do that, or?
Yeah, I asked for council's approval with this request or any request from a resident of 22401, if we could forward those to the Memorials Commission and, you know, see what kind of feedback we get from the Memorials Commission.
Right, we're actually, later in the agenda, we have an item going to the Memorials Commission regarding the bridge naming.
Okay.
Councilor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this issue forward, Mr. Fry. Because in fact, if you think about it, I wouldn't say we're going to be renaming Fall Hill Avenue. I think we'll still have a small piece of Fall Hill Avenue with the new bridge, but we will be basically combining Fall Hill Avenue with the boulevard coming up, and it makes perfect sense to come up with a new name for this new project. And I don't have any problem putting it forward to the Memorials Commission with the recommendation from the constituent. One thing I would ask that we do also and pass on to the Memorials Commission is Fredericksburg is, quote, America's most historic city. And even in the case of the civil rights movement, we have a lot of names here in this community over the years of James Farmer, O'Neill Mercer, former Mayor Davies, and a lot of others who also were involved. And sometimes it is best to, when looking at naming streets in your community, to look at them from the standpoint of people who have lived in this community, who have set an example for those who also live here. So I would have no problem moving it forward as presented, but also just kind of put a little caveat in there of, you know, again, we had a lot of individuals in this community who brought this city through the civil rights movement, who had lived here and should also be considered if that is the route we wish to go. But I think it makes perfect sense. We are going to have, for all intents and purposes, a brand new road that currently, right now, has basically two names to it, and putting it into one makes perfect sense to me. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Do you want to make that a motion, Councilor Fry?
All right, let's give this a try. I'll make the motion to forward the Fall Hill Avenue name change from Martin Luther King Jr. to forward to the Memorials Commission.
All right, motion has been made and seconded.
Can I just friendly motion that will be in one of others that they potentially could look at? I think we do need to look at the entire history of this community, even in regards to the civil rights movement.
Consideration of a name change itself.
That will be on the list, and
Right.
Added to Martin.
Because you're going to have a brand-new bridge, and when you think about it, when you name a bridge, you don't change the name
Of the road.
of the businesses and the residences for whom it's very expensive to have an address change. There are lots of things to think about when you change the name of a road. But I'm thinking about a bridge across 95 that gets a whole lot of visibility. So we'll leave it up to the Memorials Commission. It's definitely appropriate to ask them to make a recommendation to council.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All right. Oh, Councilor Duffy already seconded.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So we will send this suggestion forward to the Memorials Commission.
Need to vote?
Please cast your vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Then we go back to 7A, gun give back.
All right. Thank you very much. I want to take this time now, and like I said, this is the first for me, but it's the perfect way to start off 2015. I want to take this time as a public thank you to everybody that was involved in the gun give back that was held here in Fredericksburg on December 13th. I don't write a lot of notes. I can talk enough to look down at notes, but first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Beverly Cameron. I presented him with this idea that I had bubbling in my head for a long time, and we spoke on it, and it moved from there. So I just want to say thank you to Mr. Cameron. And after Mr. Cameron, it went on, it trickled down to Chief Nye and the whole Fredericksburg Police Department. So I want to say thank you to Chief Nye, and also Sheriff Higgs and his staff, the whole staff. I mean, I can't single people out, it's everybody. And Also, we were fortunate enough to have Miss Doris Buffett, who actually joined in, and she put some money on the line as a donation to what we were doing, and it became really effective. When you say $100 per gun, and you don't know how many guns you're going to get, I mean that's a big deal. And we could have came up with one that would have been $100, but I almost want to apologize, Ms. Buffett. We did 68 guns. So no, thank you. But Ms. Buffett was willing to go to whatever we could pull in 4 hours in one day, which was December 13th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We had people voluntary come in, and we had 60 guns in 4 hours. And it was a big passion of mine. I won't go into depth about, how big of a passion it was. I just want to say it was a big passion of mine. And I'm honored to be a councilman in Fredericksburg, Virginia. It's my home. And with this opportunity, it gave me a good chance to be proactive in the community. I'm more of a hands-on guy. So to be proactive, and today we sit here at the beginning of 2015, and we're talking about a gun give back, and it was an option for people to give up their guns, voluntary, just for any reason, but to give up their gun. And instead of talking about, murder in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which we could be talking about, which is the way we started 2014, we were talking about 2 murders. So I just want to say I'd rather talk about gun give-backs and donations than murders. And if you speak of Fredericksburg, let's not talk about murder. Let's talk about how to make Fredericksburg better. So this was a big step. I'm really excited. I can't really show how excited I am, but I'm gonna say it 2 more times. I'm excited. And also Miss Dooley had a task that she didn't know was going to come her way. I won't speak much on it, but we had a lawsuit against the city of Fredericksburg, and Miss Dooley stepped up to the plate, and we had some people that were trying to shut the gun drive down on Thursday, and we were having it on Saturday, and Miss Dooley did her paperwork the right way, and everything went smooth. So this is my formal public thank you, and also thank you to the council members and the mayor for their support and helping me move along with this. And I hope sooner than later I'll be coming at you guys with another thank you for something else. But I hope we can continue this, and that'll be in future discussions. But to my city, I want to say thank you.
Well, Councilor Fry, your city thanks you. It was a very excellent effort on the part of many people, and Councilor, have any item that
An agenda estimate.
Second.
Motion passes 7.
Madam Mayor.
Of item 8.
Item 8. Does it need to be separately?
Was that it be pulled for discussion, determine whether to accept the recommendation of the commission or not.
All right.
Yeah, I move.
All right. Council, that we pull item 8 from the consent agenda. Please note that that was the vote. We okay? Are we in order? What is the disposition item? What is that the letter from the memorial naming the new Canal Bridge family? What is the will of Vice Mayor Withers?
different things. It's no question that who donated the land should be honored, and I think we've done that. The parkland that she donated in the family name. Bridge or street needs, I don't know whether we still have the policy passed that namings of buildings and things of people who had 5 years to give time for thought for naming. I just Hall Hill, which is named after historic. We are the Franklin family. The Rappahannock retained. This comes up a few years from now, then I could support it, but I support. That's a pretty significant. So
You referred to the Rappahannock Bridge.
The canal bridge. Well, that's what it is. The Rappahannock Canal.
That is.
I think that's his name, isn't it?
No, thank you.
You know, name changes you know, we named them, change them, change something that somebody has done it for a reason in the past. So I think you need to give that a lot. Move that we take no action on this.
Council.
Taking no action, it's like a pregnant pause. It just, you have, Billy, an idea of either name as review, or, I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. One, I think what I'd like to going.
My thought is that naming something is especially such as a bridge. This come before us tonight and have us vote on it tonight, I think time to pause and consider of a naming. That's what's happened. That's
move to table.
The obviously gave it some thought. When perhaps we could use that time to ask further comment on their recommendation. Fine.
I do agree with Mr. Withers on this. While the recommendation has come to us saying that the considered it, we have not some of the discussion around it does come no action option. So that's in our minute or in our notes here that action does leave it unchanged. Is an action.
Then we just move to table.
Well,
that does it.
Or take no action.
I'll be dead.
Ensure that it comes back. Take no action. Sure. If I understand this correctly.
Well, tabled is basically.
Table would be different.
I would not oppose tabling it.
This goes away. I mean, I'll defer to the parliamentarian.
Would that, I withdraw in
as far as direction.
Motion has been made and seconded. Madam Clear on the motion. Council Fry.
On this process, as it's tabled, who presents it back to? So, there's a table and is there?
Member of council would have to bring it back. Madam City Attorney? Without a set date, leaves it, chooses to bring it back, if I understand. All right.
Thank you.
Councilor Kelly.
If we can, Commission, just to let know that we did consider it and in action without a little bit maybe further sought by the council. So we at least give them an we are dealing with one of our own boards and commissions, and at least formal. This is why we took to send to that.
I think
board
that
or
would be
commission.
very appropriate. The letter in our packet from the Memorial Commission, they will respond from Bill Mix, recognizing the for her extraordinary role, land, their family's land. And then, of course, her sister, Jenny Gill, joined in and added more to that parkland back for the benefit of the public. Intend to develop that land as a park, and that does in this family, yet. So I owe the Memorials Commission letter saying we have, and I'll on behalf of the council, that council considered the right to take action at this, or chose to table it. Okay. Thank you for asking the question. Councilor Ellis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just, the record, that the reason I'll, simply because tabling it in my mind, and it provides action whatsoever for I'll oppose. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please cast your votes.
6-1.
Motion passes 5-2.
Mr. Cameron, I did neglect in the staff memo. Sets of minutes with November 25th, the regular session of December 9th, and the regular session of December. Been some corrections to those. Have they been distributed or?
Original ones, yes.
Huh?
The original that you discussed on the 12 at Mr. Ellis. So.
Okay.
Then I'll approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. This agenda, item 10A is for first the storm sewer system. City code. I will call Ekstrom.
With Kevin Nutt, the city's stormwater environmental planner. This is an ordinance prohibiting discharge of substances other than the sewer system. Our storm sewer consists of the streets, sidewalks, ditches, drains, and anything else owned and that conveys stormwater to the system's Rappahannock River sewer system. The system flows directly into the Rappahannock without any mechanism of pollutants. Substances like nitrogen, fire, and industrial contaminants have a major impact on water quality, both for the river and points downstream like the Chesapeake. In fact, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's 2014 State report identifies polluted runoff as the only source of pollution condition of the permit that allows us to have the storm sewer. When Congress 72, the EPA promised to implement the act. States were also allowed their own regulations, EPAs, which Virginia did. Department of is the Virginia Pollutant. The VPDES components, one of which is a requirement that anyone discharging substances into so. The specific permit small Virginia locality systems is a Phase 2 MS. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer. I'll stick with them. Of an MS4 permit is the adoption effectively prohibiting all non-stormwater discharge to the storm sewer system. This ordinance prohibits all discharges that entirely of list of specific exceptions as the EPA as sources not likely to be emitted pollutants. Discharges that but are too small for actions is added to the city's existing. The same penalties and enforcement procedures would apply to letters are for any abatement. Has been working for several years to educate contractors and developers about the problems water runoff, and he's distributed information online and established a hotline on and reporting of illicit discharges. We recommend that which will allow some additional time for Mr. Rutt and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Or Mr. Ekstrom regarding this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, how difficult to pinpoint the source of the violation? Time and to go on, I'm just curious as to whether the 50 is going to cover that. So.
I defer to Mr. Rutt on the enforcement.
Thank you. Well, to answer, first of all, we're going to do an education violation. My first intent is to know we do have an illicit discharge ordinance. It is against and codes in the city. All right, catch them in the act to that first violation, that $50 fine. Mr. Esther, opening remarks, if they don't follow through with that, we also have levy upon them.
Well, I guess address this a little bit, but mop buckets and so forth, and I hope this isn't far-fetched, but we offer fundraisers and things throughout the town that affect fundraisers that groups have, often school groups. With
Again, I'll defer to Mr. Rutt. I know he
yes, well, I do. There's certain things was mentioned. I would ask these fundraisers to come talk in a location that already has some type of practice there, which would be an existing car wash. That's where they recycle their. Would locate an existing facility for them. Try to have that location and implement what controls. And when I say devices, so that before pollutants. I would also ask that sediment trapping devices or something. I mean, it's going to be minimal. It's going to be products that they can utilize out there. And then as well use soaps and things like that. And then, so it's not that it's going to prevent them from doing it. They're going to have to take precaution steps to prevent an illicit.
Okay. Education.
Right.
Okay.
Educate.
Council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Up on Councilor Devine's question. When we talk about enforcement, we keep using the term we. On city staff will actually be involved in enforcing.
Correcting that question.
Yes, sir.
Currently, the fire marshal in his department was duties as well as I had. See that driving around, that violation happened, so we would make an effort to contact each other.
Basically, we stumble on it through our normal process and stuff.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly, I don't have the time, and I don't have to, or the funding to quickly go out there and run the streets.
But that was how many people on your staff would actually enforce this?
I don't know how many violators we would have.
Do you feel right now that you have a bit of a concern about whether with the fire marshal and all the other duties that we'll be able to?
Right. We have situations, we've had someone in a report to the state. Those violations do occur, we have to report that, but they're, again, the first step. We don't have the staff right now.
If we could, maybe after the we need to do that on how effective it's been and issues, and maybe we can about what's involved, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fry.
I didn't think I would be commenting on this one, but Ms. Devine, good question. Speaking of in car washes, that's a real good question. Do you have any recommendations? First thought that came to my mind was fire goes to Firestone and for their team, for their so on and so forth in Fredericksburg. Firestone is so what's the scenario of them washing cars on a Saturday?
Are you directing that question to me? Well, again, we would have to make sure that the location do that activity, and if not, well, probably possibly prevent it. Part of our permit, our MS4 permit, EPA.
Wow.
If I could add a little bit to that, Mr. Otto, it's like biodegradable soap that can be placed over the storm.
Okay.
Could be feasible at that location.
All right. I like because I'll spread them around. A fundraiser. Yeah, because they use.
Actually, to follow up on your comment there,
Yes, sir.
The fundraiser would probably not.
Yeah, I totally understand.
Question.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question. I do have just a brief comment, because when I first the ordinance, I thought I might have to vote against it. In my base, you folks out there who may be listing some pumps are not a problem. Still pump your water into and the so don't worry. Again, when I first everybody on Kenmore Avenue is going to have, but they are exempt.
You're
so
about to get
I just.
But that's a good point. At some point in time, those
That's what I want.
You'll have up and down the mill race. 4 Avenue is. Councilor Devine?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to really, but as Mr. Fry pointed out in town, that, and I guess it would be the education piece. Perhaps staff could at some point before spring, maybe see what drainage or because it might be in and the communities take care of that up front. Be proactive about education, and I of as far as that.
And to be proactive before we go out there and just, I will mention MS4, is that fundraising car washes?
Yeah. With that, I guess, motion on first reading, it discharges City Code Chapter 59, new.
Before you cast.
Yes, Madam, thank you, Madam Mayor. That staff will report back to us on what's been going on and how it's been not effective, and talk about some of these issues and maybe have to tweak things if we this is frankly a lot of control over. Thank you.
Okay. Please cast your votes.
I don't have a year.
Zero. And B, Town Parking District clarifying the authority of the zoning administration requirements using alternative and increase $100 per space.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This at Council December 9th meeting was for a much larger area. At December 9th, significantly in size, approximately a 2.25 acre area on both sides of William Street, Winchester Street. This proposal land within that area and William Street. They wish to required parking spaces, which is only in the downtown parking district. They approached and said, we'd like to expand the downtown parking district to include our property. Their proposition, the UD Commission to initiate text amendment and agreed to do so. October 8th, and recommending unanimously expand the downtown parking district. We're looking at that to our attention that the fee district had not been back in 2006-9, and so the fee was proposed to reflect inflation. Is appropriate within the context. It is not eliminating this parking requirement. Property owner is to the city specific fund, not to the general fund, but specific purpose of providing additional parking. The Commission recommendation was, and I'd be glad to answer.
Are there any questions for Mr. Johnston? Vice Mayor Withers.
The Sonoma site, how many parking places not requiring on-site? Is that one, I think?
The Required at this point in time, I believe, is actually 28, buying, I believe, approximately 13 spaces. Looking at the, well, 15 spaces. I'm looking at the property owner in the audience.
Now, how many required though by the,
It's 28.
does that include parking?
Meet some of that 28 by the side parking, of which there are 3 spaces that they would be able to utilize along Winchester.
Places that are no longer on the side of Sonoma, that were they included in the original?
Be modifying Winchester Street so that, they would possible that
Good.
there's an acknowledgement that there
Good.
to Winchester to accommodate that.
The Sonoma site, there's 28 spaces, so there's to that also.
There is additional commercial, another
So
5,000.
if we pay next week, to develop a company, I wanted to 28 more.
It could be.
Yeah. So you're talking about 56 parking places. Everybody to understand that 6 more cars in these adjoining neighborhoods is going to be a real. First of all, I want to thank everybody for. We have some folks here that I think wanted to talk against that, but that's gone. I didn't comment at the what see there. Concerned about this. Again, I am to development. When you say that they're not requirements, they're putting them to go. Then it's a 2002 parking study said that go 400 feet parking and short retail. Saying hotel is 100 feet. I went by that yesterday. That was parked on the corner of Willett. There were 2 cars, just saying parking lot. And they're not going to use it for these projects. So if you decide, I know we want development. You're voting just on this site, not you're approving, just on this one site that's developed. That are going to go in their neighborhoods. That's. I'm not going to talk anymore, but I'm not going to support it. Thank you.
Councilor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The historical. If this project of the project across there, to Mr. Withers' point, and all the parking, if you will, being developed in reverse, being developed before subdivided. In other words, they wouldn't need to come before build it.
A little bit more for the public and everyone. Particular building is part of the Amelia Square you've pointed out, and in the process it was still one parcel, and the way the UDO reads is parking along the curb came of the parcel that's immediately at present tense, the townhouses are in the process of being built, created, and so the only parcel that is the small area that is only where the restaurant is. We're only able to address the parking to on the curb. If they had thought of this 3-4 years ago, while it was still a parcel of land, all those curbside parking and met the requirement of the ordinance.
Of Amelia Square, the credit.
Being able to count the spaces because now each adjacent and the spaces along the curb in front of them are adjacent to, and so.
And for me, look at it in total, again, if it's the reverse, so it's really, I understand your perspective, you're holding them to the left of the law, so to speak, but the fact that if it was in reverse, it wouldn't be built, Sedona first, assuming it was approved, the same amount of parking issues existing, but it wouldn't come before us because it wouldn't, right, there's no issue there.
Discussions were, obviously, I wasn't with this, I don't know what
the other interesting fact is that Amelia Square is, I mean, it's double parked. There's the driveway, and they've got their 2-car garages. The spaces I've parked there the last 2 weeks, parking there.
Councilor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going back to that scenario, and they'd be able to count all the spaces, and that entire development on it. So, ingenuous argument to make.
Oh.
I would have hoped that there would be more. Yes, depending on how many buildings and how many businesses, the dynamic on other ones. To use another example, which I laugh about, is we have our that no problem, that they already grant 39 spaces. You want to try to find out where spaces are actually located at? There. But let's be something. We have approved projects and parking spaces been counted 20 times over. Just wanted to comment. Issue since I've been on this council, which is now we come back to, we're going to deal with this. We change the ordinance, we're going to do something. When do these situations are this? What makes this one a little bit more to me is we approved this project, which included all issues related, et cetera, et cetera. Happening now is that there is a project which is eliminating parking spaces, can have chairs in front of their business, changing downtown regulations and going all number of different directions. That one reason. That's what this is all about. It would have been, I've said this before, that had happened, come to council and say, we've got a problem, because it went immediately to the Planning Commission in October. Again, as of now, covers 50% of their parking. To come up with more parking spaces. There's a draft parking spaces behind the Princess Anne building with the 7th. Council got this package on November 25th. process if we're dealing with situations. I hear a lot from people, and I go downtown all the time, and I can park in a lot of places. But every time we've gone to try to find a significant economic, people wanted markets, people wanted this, people wanted that. One that's come down, crops came down here. I don't know how many other, another, and all of them say the same thing. Parking to fulfill our locate here. Taking it $100 a space, increase. Okay, right now, a few years ago, I have not increased this for inflation. Without increasing to 30,000, without increasing space is 50 to 55,000 space to build it. Please jump on my case.
It's certainly higher than 6,500. I don't know. Your general point's accurate.
Surface parking spaces are surface lots are we planning on downtown? Space behind the Princess Anne building. Said, you know what? We want to lease some of those spaces. Can we? Yep, this is open to the public. Everybody wants to be able to park here. We want to open up our businesses. Boom. Want space, what are we going to tell them? Or any other restaurant if they want space. The butcher shop here, I don't know, is over at our Princess Anne lot. We're ready to go. Happening, because that's what parking spaces gone by the boards. For the most part, by the sports bar down. They had their parking. That's going bye-bye. And all that parking, that business. Park, we're going to lose another 9 spaces. Now, the most we got, if we go into building another location, quote, 70 spaces. I understand where and the developers coming from and what they want to do and try to get a business because our lap, Brad, and I know you'll agree talking about year after year, and we just kind of hand down the road. You know, in 2003, we're going to build a parking deck here, we're going to build a parking deck here. Now we're being told by staff in our last meeting, well, we can't do that. They don't want to sell us. Well, frankly, but the comments, we stopped the conversation. You know, we incentivize businesses is, frankly, from a business perspective, not just, hey, I got to try wherever I want to. I don't have a problem parking spaces. But when you locate business, an issue with every single one of. And I don't like the fact, in this particular case, that we're looking at, because one business act to be able to put, and, you know, so, like this, one business, because they've decided to change their design, and impact all the other businesses and neighborhoods which don't have the on leasing spaces and everything else. And also, again, October was being in early November, like being put in a position of, and well, I would rather be honest and upfront and say, guys, this change, we think this, for whatever reason, we want to do it, and then we're stuck in the position in December and into January with our backs up against the wall and say or don't, and that's the only That I don't like, and that's got to. I will support Billy's motion.
We actually do not have a floor at this time. I'll call on Councilor Ellis and then
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can make a point to make too.
I'll motion notes. We have one to discuss.
With that, I will move approval of the ordinance first read, expanding the zoning administrator to reduce downtown using alternative parking plans and increasing the 6,500.
Now we have a motion and we have a second. Did you want to say something, Mr. Johnson?
And sort of clarify, had made reference, the reason for the need on Sedona is not entirely of spaces. That's part of it. The original plan for those along William Street was that they were parking requirement retail is 1 per 300. The parking 1 per 1 door seating. They would still have a of use from the original plan. Changing it from retail requirement, and in addition they eliminated that, they shifted the building. So I just wanted disclosure.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ellis.
I just want to state that this is I really feel that way. Opposite problem of a tumble. Nobody. And we've been through that. I wasn't here. Mayor Catley was here.
I was here.
Mr. Kelly was here. Mr. Vine. Mr. Fry, maybe a little younger, but was here. But I've certainly read about it and I've heard about it. And obviously I support, I look forward to the tax revenue, I think, right? Stating that, I said it last year, the money in reserve. CAFR, you know what we have in reserve this year. Build it next year. To location is, and we know that we're necessarily kicking it down the road. I will say, we're at a point where I feel we need to do what's necessary to settle on a spot and move forward. Absolutely. While it's not part of this motion, I realize that I spend the money to design it this year, the garage in 2016. Okay. Point, he's made it several businesses that want to locate. I don't feel we have necessarily, and Ms. Little, I appreciate your, and others that whereas I understand your concern. I guess I don't live it. I don't feel it. Although I park down here for work, and I come and go 2 to 3 times, and I just never have a parking issue, ever. I don't get close to my office each time. And when I come down to eat on the weekend, pretty frequently, turned around and park. I always get parking. I just never had an issue. Christmas parade, what have you, Saturday night, I have an issue parking. Thank you.
Already. I just wanted to comment on it. Maybe a question. It depends. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Withers. But when this was presented to us as an extension, it was it was wrong with half of Fredericksburg presented. And before something like that, I think that that should be really reviewed, because we could have been quite extended. So I'm glad that because I just didn't know how to word it. But you know, it was a greater district. You know, now it's eliminated to one block. So, you know, on that aspect, like, it gives us a little bit because there are no houses right there. But in the future, project alone, with the piece of property there, as I said, development there, which is, of course, a good right there next door. But the problem is going to be with the new development there is, so you can't even count the street parking as part of the plan. As part of this, it's not there. So, you know, as we grow, yeah, it's going to push into the neighborhood. Suggest in the future, I don't even know how. You know, out of respect for the elected officials, I would support. Hope that we're making better decisions. I want to note that we already have a package drawn up, and I think how do we end up with an incentive package already for business? So I mean, I don't know the learning this part, but we have a business that here. You know, everybody wants. You know, not everybody, but you know, everybody wants. We already have, and I'm just trying to come to grips with an incentive package before we the rights to the business. I mean, it sounds good to get, but I'll support it. But if a project, I'm not one to give up. Project comes next door, and I like to see how it plays out. So I like to go on the record saying we need forward quickly, because just as Mr. Kelly said, and 90 spots are limited, it's going to be a bigger problem. So in respect, as we need to provide something now. And one more thing I want to add, if and allow businesses for everybody who lives in these areas, no, if it's going to be impacting the residents who pay taxes, and a lot of them been here for taxes here. If they have a problem with parking, we need to maybe parking permits for these residents. Have their own parking area, even though by right parking on the street for everyone. We giving the citizens, as we invade, to make the city go round. I would recommend, before we continue to keep a development, we can choose what comes here. It's us to do that. But with respect to all the residents of Fredericksburg, you know, residential parking, then I think that we should come up with some type of parking. You know, it's going to cost, it's costing, you know, the residents. But in this one block, and you know, on that, but in the future, I don't know how many I'll be able to support.
Vice Mayor Withers.
Yeah, I said I wasn't going to talk anymore about this, but I do need to address one issue. We don't, it's a good problem. It's not a good problem to have when you come home and you don't have a parking place at your house. I can tell you this, You enough of in those places a few times. I see it every morning, noon, and night. 3 times a day. I look at cars. I know what the problems are. Folks, this is going to be a major on the adjoining, and it's you know, Adam talks about the new one, talks about neighborhood park, adequate neighborhood parking, and here we are approving something that's going to push parking, commercial. I'm telling you, folks, it's just a good thing to do. Say that. I always respect, and I will respect y'all's tonight, but I feel very strongly that this is an extremely for the residents. Thank you.
A struggle for me. You know, work through this from the beginning, and so thank Mr. Withers for the proposed in their parking requirements. I think we're at a point where we do have some serious growing pains, and I think this is we have areas for additional parking. You know, years ago, and 10 years ago, opened the parking deck downtown, haven't moved forward. I think it is time to move forward. So we made it one of our goals for the next 2 years. Champion of that. I look forward to on parking. Having said that, we had a conversation with sharing the parking on the evenings and weekends. We talked about, or as businesses change or grow, a good example that Parkview, some now, and we're sharing parking, parking used during businesses using the day, using it during the evening. And I just don't know how far we've gotten on that, because I guess I heard that that's part of our proposal. So I think that that's conversation needs. You know, we do have other parking areas, the Freeland Star Lot, until it's developed, that I think is something we need to pursue, because behind are the 904 Princess Anne Street. Not necessarily the best option. It is, and it's not an obvious option. Signage or for patrons as well. So I think we have to pursue things in tandem. I'm going to support this project. I'm struggling with, I think it's a short-term impact in the vicinity, a project, and that is
if at all,
because we're pursuing project. I am hoping that will be an option. I think we seriously need to pursue parks in other areas of the city. Wonderful, but we do need triangular to go, and so it is difficult to, I know what the parking impact, I know it's not always easy to deal with that. And this is something I'm struggling with. This spurs us on to address our parking. Thank you.
Councilor Duff.
Thank you.
Ms. Devine said, there's a will, parking, and a more I think there's a will in the community to do that, and there yet, and so for that reason, withhold my, it moved a little further down parking options in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question. Agreement going to come back to the council for the additional parking?
Mr. Johnston? Mr. Cameron?
Members of council, it's not a legal agreement. The developer, the city is a party to. It is not a lease per se. Council action.
Part of the allowance for this particular project?
I'm understanding that it is not. So I just wanted to get that clarified. Thank you.
I am supporting this district. I have spoken on this before. I thing for the district. There's an implication is not doing anything. The staff has been and there are some very good surface parking if they are short term in the area. I appreciate the phone, the emails, and I do hear you. I don't share the that it will be as dramatic as Mr. Withers says, because I might just an observations, Vice Mayor Withers, in that I see parking available. If we were to apply this rationale, we wouldn't have. I keep, but that doesn't mean we do not address parking opportunities and the staff itself certainly is taking a look at every of this parking lot, and we have some. Tried to have some conversations bear fruit, and we are taking the opportunity of new development to some public-private partnership in parking expenses. So going forward, I definitely assure the public. I think I do think have argued for many planning commissioner and as the council that most downtowns, particularly in historic cities, don't have any parking options. Level, and obviously Mr. Kelly says, I don't know all the people that have turned us down. my business, but nonetheless, if allowed, so if possible for their project. So if the private developer is just as interested in providing, the city is, but for this area, in this construction town, I will support this ordinance. Councilor Kelly.
If, and a lot of jurisdictions have that as a possibility, but if you go to those localities, look how many facilities they have gone ahead and gotten rid of their parking restrictions. Realized that they needed additional parking, and the biggest issue we have is twofold. One, we've got an historic district city that will become more and more valuable as on its way this region is developed. Just cram stuff in here and creating problems is a detriment to that character of this town, which got to be careful of that. We do. I agree with Billy. Just parking problem is a good thing. We know what the issue is. We know. You know, we've all now said it again. We're ready to move. This conversation has happened around this horseshoe. So I'm waiting and willing to hopefully move forward on this. Important. Thank you.
Yeah. Disagree. Remove parking without adding parking. Agree with that at all. Further discussion on this. Not the to approve on first read expanding the downtown parking district as written.
Motion passes 4. Kelly Duff.
Thank you, and thank all of you for your emails and comments to us. Is affirming the process for Front Park, and I will call upon Mr. Cameron.
Madam Mayor, is a resolution park concept plan provides for the next steps in the design process. The resolution specific actions, let me go over those. First, it roadside and Harwood was presented to council in work session on city manager to develop request for proposals for final design and construction. It also directs the manager the river to evaluate the proposals. Council the highest ranked firm for board. Directs the task force to take the lead role with the design firm to prepare the detailed design. Directs the Riverfront Park Task Force to engage council periodically milestones or decision points development process. And limits the overall design and construction. The city's intent to include the cost of design and construction services. 15 bond issue indicates that the Riverfront Park complete design work by 1/20. I believe that covers it. I'd be happy to about this matter.
Are there any questions to Cameron?
Yeah. Cost estimates. Here they are. I see Mr. Solly, that they've cut the cost from 18, 19 million down to something million. Mr. Cameron? But also in his letter suggest that we do not do away with it. That's also correct, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what's in the letter.
And that is listed at $2 million. Left out of the last, I think he states in the letter that it's things that would off, and that they can get the mass done for less than $1 million. Then, of course, the cost contingency in it that runs through 2017 plus 9%, 2018. 3% a year. On $10 million, that adds some thousand. You know, I know that we've spent a lot of time on this, but hope that we would I'm night for this, a work session or whatever. Stand where are we going before we commit $1 million. We need to have a pretty good idea of, you know, cutting $10 million out of quite a bit different, and I've gone through that. I'd like to make plans before we get in the middle of something. And we did agree during the retreat to go forward in a way that we all understand, and we give lots of input. Understand with the final $10 million project. I don't think they know what. I think on this, have we? Has there been a council here?
No.
I mean, I would think we're required to do that, wouldn't we? Does anybody have an idea? Spend $10 million without having the public.
That's the point.
If we're going to appropriate $1 million for a $1 million project,
that would be part of the budget. Yeah, well,
so you don't want to have
that we have put forward CIP and that is a public process. Yes, Mr.
I may add that there's an item later in your on a winter public hearing component with it. There would be there's an for a winter 2015 dead, and that would have a public hearing component as well.
But
those do too.
That plan that's going to come back to an amount specified. Looks like it's going to be under. We're setting a price under $10 million. More input. I just don't see how they can, based on all the numbers that you have here, had they cut $1 million, keeping the math of cutting $9 million and still being. I just like to have understanding and watch them voting on something to. That's on my only comment.
Councilor Devine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess as part of the task force letter from the task force packet, but there was a report to move forward with some changes, some preliminary changes keeping the mast was like the first recommendation from the task force, and saving found in and part of the design. Concept plan, did come. The task force met, reviewed, and looked at the, including things like trees, the that we would, Fredericksburg to experience savings there. We looked at all sorts of ways up front that without diminishing the impact of the park. That, again, the task force forward as a city, and in the process, with the final maximizing any savings during are now looking to move forward.
Councilor Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Echo Billy in the sense that I think we all right now it's not till 2018. So subject to replacing the park down on the riverfront and putting that park to the downtown businesses, and of course we had Shiloh Church, who is very concerned with their parking in the course of this project. I'm going to take it from 50,000 and bring it down. In a street and task force, I'm on the task force, is I've got to look at the city and its capital budget, and a vast majority of those wants, they are flat out needs that we've got to get done. And we all know parking being IT, water, sewer, and projects coming down the pike, absolutely no question about it. What we don't have is a lot of significant economic development in the city. Under the current considered in our retreat, we are looking at a 5-cent increase for a number of years here. Capital plan, operational, no increases in schools, no needs in fire. We are increase of 3 to 4% for a number, not just one, to make the improvements have to make. It's not a question of putting it off anymore. Before we go committing to a large expenditure, we need to put projects in a total context public. Numbers for the first time this evening and what got to be part of this discussion. I have not heard a person park, but I've not heard a person. In fact, I've gotten more concerned. $10 million on it. They're suggested public at large, the people outside also have a say because it's their taxes that will be going up. With the priorities we have, if they want to spend $10 million, let's go, charge, we're on our way. Going down, the concept plan is grading, movement, and everything else. And staff back and forth, and but I think it's time to get a square answer is staff personnel who are the planes and all those other issues that are involved here. The answer I get from staff at this point is we really haven't a chance to sit down and yet we want to be Hal Wiggins, Corps of Engineers, him to heck just before Christmas, because I said, Hal, if you look at this and give us back, he said, listen, I 12, and that's my last communications on that. That's not a good thing. During the task force, a very good point was brought up. We're grading it, and we're going, which was, this area is going to flood on an every other year or at a significant times. Be to the city for all that. In other projects that we have done, we have also looked at operational costs. What is it going to cost? I mean, this is a beautiful, it's got a lot of stuff in a very small. I'm aware, I mean, I've worked on pools and every other significant project that have come down. Big questions and a very, it's easy to build, it's heck to make and keep things going. As far as I'm aware, the council's involvement in this, the city manager pointed out, was approximately half an hour work session before a council meeting and a slide proposal. That's it. That's what we as a on a $10 million project. Just received on a Thursday. I think what we need, and I'm willing to, if this is something we want to spend $10 million on, I'm fine. They need to understand the context in regards to other city priorities. We're at 2018 now. We have significant up to a deck overlooking the river, which I think is a great idea. Deck. We had a beautiful deck. And because we wanted to have an amphitheater on the deck. And then, of course, in the last plan, we found out can't use the amphitheater, so now, for all intents and purposes, is we have been doing this with this perception. It's time that we have a public hearing on capital and get public input on, again, when that $18 million first came out, I'm not talking about just people I know like that, but people coming up to me going, 18 down to 10 million for this park. They were kind of like, it's a lot of money for, if we remember correctly, we need to point out in our, I don't want to, we're sending over what the school board, the big school board projects, when we did our 5-year plan projects, they're gone. They're off the 5-year list. We need to have a serious discussion on the fact the staff is, what is this conversation at the retreat, what our debt is going to have to be over the next few years. And again, they can hang on for about 5 years other than one area that they need serious help on, which we promised. If the courts can scream and get a courthouse up, the school board been telling 5 or 6 years, but we need to be looking at what those expenses are going to be and potentially significant those out years to keep our in order. First, say, people, this is what you are, this is what it's going to cost you to do it. Have a work session, and when I say work session, night before a council meeting, down and have Kevin and whomever the issues of floodways, floodplains are. The council do need to know that, and I know some task force looked at all that. I don't not necessarily agree with that conclusion. That staff presentation made to us have the start of the city, and if then we can take the vote to move forward. But right now, the way it should be presented, and frankly, the necessary to make this decision to commit $10 million to this project. Thank you.
Not spoken to it, and then I'll go to Counselor.
I haven't spoken yet.
All
right.
Thank you.
Now,
For the, one comment, or if somebody wants a second, with the riverfront task, was it designed to the park, to work along with the park? How long will the task force, be involved in this project? Because city project, is it project?
the task solution that is before us, the task force will, it's spelled in the,
Is that right? Up until completion of the project.
It comes at certain key for the city manager. The task force will evaluate the design firm, the public, and the task work with the design firm, periodically engage the city council in the design. As that logical mind, design decisions are required, and the city council establishes this resolution a budget to exceed.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's basically the
clarity.
process.
Okay.
Okay.
For this, I do want to know if anybody's still.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
question.
getting late. It's getting late. I want the public to know that this a vote for actual vote to. $10 million is a lot of money. I know we want to, seem as if I want to publicly say I'm for the park. Task force worked hard on this project. A lot of things. I know they had. I was hearing about all of those for a good while about the about park. Serious budget conversation. When the developer or what have you of this, he did brief us on. When he briefed us on this, the question was asked, and he said no budget. How that's what he said. Ever and money wasn't an issue. Well, money is an issue. It's not to knock the project of the. We just sit here and talked about the street from there, and we talked about we're going to have a parking problem down by. So a bunch of money. We need to discuss budget part. From the task force. With the options of the park, us saying that the mass design, and I don't agree with the mass concept. When you look at a city or a county or what, look at a park as an attraction of a particular area, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. If you look and you say that's just going to be the draw to Fredericksburg, it's the centerpiece of this park. If the mass is most, the mass in this, I wasn't on council then when this all is here now, but at a park and you look at a mass and you look at visitors and say, that's here for, where if you have, know that goods came into by water. We also know. So on the corner there, old slaves right on William Street, and auction block. To me, if you look at Fredericksburg and you go down to and you see the thing that was brought into Fredericksburg was slaves. The slave trade then. One thing that was brought here was slaves. To be reminded to go to a city. Slaves came here and marched up William auction block to be auctioned off. That's just not something I want to see in Fredericksburg. It's here. I know that the man is saying, but I'm just telling you what a part of a ship by water, with Fredericksburg. So usually a story that goes with something at a public park. That's my view. It needs to be looked at, but to have this, there could be an option of 2 or 3 concept plans for the park to be a part of this further discussion. On that, but
Councilor Wallace.
Thank you, Madam. Park. I cannot support written the way it is. Fiscal impact section, any or design and build up, etc., a limit of 10 million. I'm not comfortable with that. If we ensure cost saving, provide if you give them 10 million, it's going to be 10 million. A number, putting a number onto it, it happens. It's what a better way to approach it is for the design, the detailed design for a number, and we get that. There's time to build in the next year or two. Design, the detailed design, but and the intent here with what we put out as a priority. We prioritize, and it is a priority. It represents a significant. And we talked about something else we needed this. And speaking, you alluded to this earlier discussion. What are the priorities? Taking all this in, I would lay out needs and wants. And these are, so you can quote me on this until the cows come home. Number 1, write it down. Number 1, parking. It's an economic. Number 2 is school expansion, and it's also an enabler. It increases values. And then number 3, I do believe it has an component to it. I view that as a want. The other 2 as in top 3 in order. I don't know, that's probably a 45, 50 price tag right there, all 3. There. So, my recommendation would be, if there's enough, then there's enough council to support it, and we'll very likely a $10 million. I think that's a bit extreme. Other 2 items I mentioned. I spend $10 million this year. It needs to be on the design of a parking garage. And then spend the appropriate amount. I don't know what the appropriate amount might be for a detailed design. Is it $500,000? I don't know. But this resolution moves forward, design and build up to 10 million. And with a more detailed, need a design and
The question is it to put forth an RFP without a price limit? Question you have to consider, and I'm that to the city manager, but that's a great point. The dilemma is how can you put forth an RFP kind of a budget limitation on it?
And I agree with you. Design and then build, or do we want? Is that the ultimate goal? Do we need design and build?
Put forward for design, well, it's on the concept, but you open it up. Right. Think about that.
We did it for the courthouse. We got designs.
We did it. Did
We had a
not,
number,
Mr.
yeah.
Cameron?
We did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. We're going to get forward the 10 million. You're
But we may have a.
Or
We may
more.
have a. Well, let me. What did we spend on the trail? I have some memory on and from here. Since
I don't remember.
This is, yeah, to this number, and if you look at...
no, I'm going
we got-
somewhere with this, Mr. Kelly.
I think we went, I think came out, how far we went with FAMPO or...
There was a 1.6 million was one number.
For the sake of, I guess, this is what I heard.
Yeah.
3 or 4 million. Is that park had a lot of public input. It had an enormous amount of public support. What we've gotten for anything we've done in recent years. And we spent somewhere $4 million on any realistic comprehension to develop a park knows it's going probably close to. I just don't, and I'm sorry, I'm hearing, and so I find to, we're talking a park here of grass with, okay, and we're talking something proven economic development in its work. So I think we're getting hung up on, well, matter. Do you came in, shocked everybody, and furthermore, not approving debt issuance, final bond, sign even, you're simply sending this forward. We concept that's had a whole lot of public input forward for a opportunity to value engineer and say no. We can say we don't 0.758 whatever when it comes in at the end, but we're never going to get anywhere if we don't get started on it. Enormous amount of support for this. We really. So Divine, you wanted to speak.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Ellis wants to.
Yeah, to wrap it up, and I agree. Most everything you said, 98%. And I want this to be I really do. The price tag, laid And I don't think we can afford it all in the next couple of years, but I think we can solution to do that. That's a need. Can't do both. We can't do it.
I don't think we're proposing a single year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're not. We're proposing to move ahead with the details at this point. The park this year. I appreciate this park. One of the development amenities equal development. Mayor Greenlaw, when you pointed out the huge boost as far as the city, people wanting to move into, people from outside the city have been spending a lot in town and people on the trail. We're seriously thinking about moving into the city or back into the city. They have been a huge, will be a huge amenity. The park is designed to tell the history of Port City. We're at the fall line. I teach a geography class. My 8th graders need it's at the fall line of the Rappahannock. Designed. It is going to tell the history of. I don't think you need to point out to anybody potential for flooding. That is part of the design being taken into consideration. That doesn't surprise anybody. This is a decade-long planning. This has been going on since here when I was in college. Task force was formed in 2007, and if I can read the list of groups that it represents, not only City Council, but Parks and Development and Tourism, the Parks and Rec, Historic Fredericksburg Foundation, Fredericksburg Main Street, Rising Sun Neighborhood, Darby Town Neighborhood Association. All of those groups are. This task force has an amazing attendance rate. Interested, attend the meetings, are very active. All of those folks go back and get input. This a lot of public input process through public charrettes, through design firm to come up with the concept design. We went through a lot of public input. There were comments. I have not been part of a project that has much input in as far as the monetary piece, why we have a public budget. This was put forth as a priority council. As we move forward, it will become part of the process, and public will certainly weigh in on it. As far as spoke to Hal Wiggins 48 hours, and he is saying the same thing he has said for several years, is that there are no regulatory showstoppers. But he and Ken have said they comment further at this point that they need. Mr. Utt came over and over. There's nobody anything or slide something by anything. There's nothing to comment on until there's a detailed phase. But both representing the Chesapeake Bay Act, regulatory things, have both looks great. At this point, they can't comment further until that is very clear. We're not working around with them. Again, at this point, we are at the point community support have gone through. We have our goals for the next biennium, and time to move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, we're having different conversations with staff, and that's because I'm not getting the same stories you're getting, which is a good reason why I brought it up in the very beginning that maybe it is time to have Kevin and everybody sitting to talk about, express some deal with floodways and floodplains. Regulatory. Got to deal with them on occasion. As far as I'm concerned, if the public wants us to spend, I'm going to do that, but we're not there yet. Hasn't heard anything about, I mean, everybody got involved in it, everybody said this, that, and the other. When it hit the fan, that was $18 million, had sticker shock. Even a lot of sticker shock from the public. That everybody was involved, therefore everybody supports it. Go that far. And there's another critical point here. We've got a lot of priorities that are going to cost money, which when I say city residents a lot of money, because we all on a regular basis. And to the point on education, current CIP school board projects out beyond the 5 years. Their recent discussions. And these are what our priorities. $1 on a park, more power to go. But until we have that conversation, I don't think this vote. 1, 2. We have a work session with staff giving their views as well as anybody else. November 9th, we were looking pictures at an $18 billion oh, by the way, and I agree with Brad, once you said it, to the mayor's point of how much, the vast majority of that was state money out of FAMPO that we got. You're not going to get any significant state. We are going to be the ones to have to pay for it. Not opportunities to get. It's going to be a very, very this. Again, trails, big state and fed. Taxpayer dollars. We got it outside. Finally, we have said from the beginning, and we all to retreat, parking would have to be replaced before the park begins. As of right now, on our last executive session, wants to change their position now. It don't have anything on the river on top of William Street to get to. Right now, we have absolutely no plan to the parking on the riverfront in the area where it's needed and where we've always. And frankly, we still can have that conversation. Until we can answer that question, tell the public and tell Shiloh Oldside, dealing with the parking issue, this is how we're going to deal with the parking issue. We have, again, if and the public comes, we have first our work session with the press there, reporting everything, what the issues are, and explain to the public, these are what the city costs were going to cost us to put it up here and I'll vote for it. We need to have, again, as I said before, then I'm ready to vote. We're looking at 2018. What I'm talking about is the process of real what's involved with this project. We're going to have to come together what we're going to do on that parking issue because parking had to be replaced for the park, which means we'd have to get. And then if it comes back, we can vote on a $10 million project.
Councilor Duffy.
This has public process. I had the opportunity in the 2 public sessions to give input about design ideas, participated in a focus group. No one else had the chance. Important that we do move forward. Okay, go for it.
Go ahead.
Important that we do move forward. Continue to debate this. Forward to see what the specific designs, information to see what exactly. This city needs a riverfront park to tell the story, good and bad. I think it's vital to this, and I think it will do the downtown for the community, a place that has been lost for so long with our backs as the city streets. And so I urge the council to move forward in a process and pass this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. It's for attorney, the fiscal impact. Attorney, the will need to borrow funds for the completion of this project. Okay, just this in no way binds us to. Can support this.
That is correct. This takes the next step or puts the next step for the development of City Council. As Mr. There would be public hearings associated with the bond. There's an annual public plan, and that's where we put projects and where the big capital projects sort of have to compete with each other. Context, and we present on the horizon, balance the priorities against each other. There are mechanisms for that, and there are annual mechanisms as well. Of course, we'll have a public to any money that has to be immediately approved. It would be handled at the annual budget.
Okay. All right, for that, because in listening to make her case, you got to have more. I was hoping we could go with design and then so what I will have it in normal on supporting is bond issuance for $10 million. We haven't made a decision. Upcoming meeting on when we decide where we're here very soon. You know, obviously, as Matt is going to be in competition with other big projects. That's going to be a difficult decision. We to me it's in by its third.
Well, as he has pointed out to us, that public process that you call county happens every year. It happens with capital improvement. Come listen to be quite frankly. It starts, and I can remember when I was chairman being, berating public because nobody plans, and this is how you're taxed, and this is how the priorities are established. As for outlays, but very definitely the solution gives us get a design that will that people are asking that will give us a target number that to spend or not or when. But we can't what that's going to be without going forward with the design process. The process laid out to council and to the public at peer. I'm going to start the end forward. Councilor Fry, you're up.
Back to my first comment, I want the mass was that here, and it's proposed to us as particular plan agreed upon, part of the plan for the city, a few options. This option won't be, the option, but you have a few options. I know there's some water features that was supposed to be and so on and so. Some comments saying, well, we're water features and, it's just conversation. But, a lot of the things on the park were going to change 10 million to the 9 million. So, I mean, on that part, I understand to get some plans to get it going. But, I mean, I don't think it's did a lot of work. But I don't think it's fair to say this one plan. What if during this process with not saying that's going to happen. If the public comes in and say we don't want this as a centerpiece to our park, million on, and the public will have their say so on that part if this is the process. So going back to square one once again, I would assume if says they don't want this particular, because if the public comes out and says I don't want this, and at that time, that's a question. If the public comes back when we go through the process, we'll spend $2 million on. Man.
Trying to imagine this scenario. I guess what you're saying is when we get the design and we the decision can yay or nay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, can be made. May force changes in the concept itself.
Right.
Our putting indeed force a change in the concept. Did you want to speak?
Just briefly, in the sense that a water play area for kids is included. It was, and so the overall concept weigh in on, and there were several options. But that there were several designs, and the public task force narrowed it. But again, the public most and a little bit differently, things like that. But as far as what people, that plan has done that.
The reason why I said this is because just if the public comes, I don't want I don't want to spend this much, not ask, but I don't want to spend. And my point in saying that is then to the drawing board once again, because what are we going to do besides that? That's my point. That was having one option. That and saying vote on this one. That's all.
Okay. Councilor Kelly.
To Charlie's, as Ms. Vine alluded to, this has been a process. We started out with EDOL in the 80s and went on from there. 3 concepts. The first concept at EDOL, 800,000. Planning and everything else like that went by the boards. Gone through 2 concepts. We've made, because we were expecting things that didn't happen, we put land into it, but well planning and everything else like that on never went forward. Conversation, frankly, is that the public had a say in what the public has not had the opportunity of the cost. We keep saying back and do this, we can come do that. Why? Frankly, a work session council actually gets a briefing on the project, which it has not. Told, oh, by the way, for a council meeting. That's what we've had. And we have not our own staff. If Kevin Up wants to come down here with this, fine. If the opportunity to hear this and come back and say, we're ready to spend, why don't we want to have that conversation front end instead of, oh, we're going to do this open the process. They'll have their chance to weigh in on it. So we're going to go through what we went through with where we all of a sudden want this, not that, and everything else falls apart. At least have a conversation with the public saying, the concept. We got a price. By the way, here's all the other things we have to do. Cost you. If you want to, we just sit down with our staff because we can carry I and you on what staff says about it and have them in a public setting. I don't have a problem with this, or I do have this thing can't be done. And again, we have no plans to deal with the missing park. And that was one of the big things the public wanted dealt with was the parking down there. They got to find a way to flock. No plans for that. With not having on the cost in relation to everything else we're having staff actually and get a full briefing on this project to vote. I'm talking about a month. That critical and have all these arguments as we are doing on the back end instead of having these on the front end where we need to be bored that all of a sudden we've got to do this right now. When there's fundamental information that the public has not been given opportunity to weigh in to include a brief project, the going off around this council chamber. So I talked to him, he said that. Frickin' put him down, have the conversation. The problem with doing that, first, going back and saying, okay, we've had it, you've had your, then we can move on. And fighting the battles on the back end, which we for.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I do understand projects, by the way. You folks have worked 2 years and done great work on this project. And I commend you for that. But your charge was to come up with a design. Now it's to build. We're going to have a public hearing, but we're talking about spending $1 million. Knowing what the public really thinks. I won't go into a long-winded thing, but with what Councilman Kelly says. We're simply asking. I talked to Bev this week. I said, we're sending all, if we on this plan, does that end up with plans that total 10 million? I think that's what I asked him. Before you send these plans off for the we asked, knowing that once we do that, it's going to tie into that number. Much longer, but the general idea is that but your charge was to come up and decide to build it. So that, I think we have to. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We've had considerable discussion with other motion on the floor for us as a resolution.
Mayor, I'll move a resolution. Front Park.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further?
Motion passes 4-3. Aye. Kelly voting against.
Discussion will share it with, consider going forward. Thank you. Thank you all. 10D, amending the Virginia Web Master Agreement Amendment voting. Mr. Cameron.
Madam Mayor and members of council, this resolution which approved master agreement, this amounts to a statutory change enacted by the General Assembly, and the effective make the Commonwealth's vote VRE weight as the weight of the highest VRE local subsidy, so long as the VRE is equal to the highest contribution made by jurisdiction, and take place July 1st. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Cameron?
Just to bring up to speed on what this is and where it is. Thank you. Another thing that amazed in the other prior administration, the process operates office by a member of the board, did a check and audit of everything and came back, well, we don't like the way you do things, and therefore we want to have this amendment to where we, which was an interesting thing, that they're the ones who set up the process. Them is not the best one to operate. All these weird conjunctions in regards to funding. Lo and behold, it went to the general. This proposal you have before you now. Election, a new governor comes in, a new RPT comes in. He says, you know what, we really don't care about this. This is not, we understand what happened. We're not as interested in pursuing this. But because the General Assembly passed it on a round, it stayed. So is that in all the votes that the state usually makes, whenever it comes to an issue regarding the state or state funding, they abstain, which kind of makes sense in the first place. Having said, we are the last jurisdiction to. The reason we've held it up is back time frame, if actually before that, the VRE master had negotiated to have certain projects done at our station. And all those projects, VRE finally acknowledged that all those projects supposed to be done were not done. Congresswoman Joanne Davis under a big chunk of the bridge, and VRE, well, we oversaw those funds. So no. We had about coming up with an agreement, which I think we now have, acknowledging one, they still have projects, which includes and things of that nature, which we originally wanted. Two, issues with CSX and the condition of the bridge, and agreed to work with us to intercept, I don't know how far that'll go, to see if there's any deal with regards to the roughly 1.3 to 1 budget currently in play for commuters. The bucket, but it's preliminary design, environmental, and things of that nature. Something that we don't have the staff to carry that through. I've asked if VRE staff can, they're working on a number of projects, for example, and assist us moving that project started. The estimate we had is a $35 million park. It's going to be a big one. So, and things we've asked is, we had a meeting, gosh, this is back in 2008, if not before, in a room with VR to talk about coming up with a station. The problem we have that most deal with is CSX does station, they have to, and frankly, you know, here and there, it's off on it. So coming up with a master plan for our, we're already talking about bathrooms, you know, we've talked about, we need so people can actually step onto the trains. You know, system of there is abominable as your track you're going on, got to get that square. So they've also agreed to work with us with CSX to come up with a master plan for the state. Come up, we can get it, not have to worry to constantly going over to CSX. Can we do this? Bunch on a lot of projects that we've had done. Writing that yes, we have $425,000 outstanding that they issues, master planning, getting moving parking deck and the funding there. The one opportunity we have, frankly, to board of proportion. So obviously, when it comes to changes in the master agreement, we got a little bit of say. So we've cut this agreement. Frankly, a vote that is in the master agreement that frankly is meaningless and long term. But that's, I just wanted to make you be aware of all the details. With that, I'll go ahead and make agreement amendment regarding weighted voting.
I'd like to second that. Councilman Kelly for all the work he's done on this. It's quite a savings to the city, so thank you, Matt, for your hard work.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 10, resolution adopting plan for fiscal year 2015 and fiscal year 2000.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. This is back from the December meeting, the work plan that was developed from the initiative. And in the time, I'll just go through a few that we've been making. December, the riverfront parking that needed to be corrected, the IT, several clarifications in about things like IT strategic plan, and then we also clarified the FMC plant decommissioning. That initiative, to stay in close and frequent communication with the council champion initiatives, which is something and that council will be up, and we may need to amend this work plan as we. So that's the here. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Whitley?
Yeah, I move that we adopt the plan.
Initiative work plan. Second? Please cast your votes.
Counselor Fry.
Item 10F is a bond issue memorandum and a discussion of same.
Yes, ma'am. This is a initial brief for City Council 2015 debt issue. It may not technically be. Right now, we're looking to actually based on an RFP. I apologize for that little slip of my brain as I wrote that title. This also comes out of the October retreat, and debt discussions and the CIP discussions we've known for some time that for the sort of the second SPRAT projects, if you will, the Normandy Village, Charles Street, and the College Heights water projects. Also known that Spotsylvania County has some significant improvement, and we owe a share of that as part of our in terms of the drop. We went ahead and looked into the current budget that was presented at the retreat, pulled some additional projects out to go to the bank, and those include the Twin Lake project, the Public Works Department identified several additional water and sewer, a water line project to replace on Caroline between several associated with road project, water lines in the Bragg Hill Heritage Park area, Wicklow Drive to Crestview Way, and additional water line projects in all block of Lafayette Boulevard for a water repair in Huntington Hills for sewer, replacing the belt, which is worn out, and we need to go ahead and replace that. Included in $1 million work. Also included Fire Station 3 work for $650,000. South Public Works capital equipment. Revenue sharing matches for the current year, which is repairs to the bridge and traffic safety. And that's all of the memo. And as we've looked at this and developed this, the fiscal impact there, you'll see the existing debt service schedules for the next several years if we don't issue any more debt right now. And then a sort of a calculation of just what happened. We're going to breaking this debt issues because you don't want to borrow for and don't live. It's good to go ahead and get some of the debt 5 years rather than have everything be long term. Selected several for long. And based on that, and based on the schedule in the fiscal impact, roughly 820, roughly 700 for 5, going beyond that for water, 30, and then 180 for the sewer. And we thought about it. We may, in fact, we. Couple of those general fund projects, Station 3 and the riverfront, those assets, and we were 20-year basis rather than a 5-year. Take that 800 down some, as that looks more like if we did that. That's not a saving, thinning out the debt schedule. So that is we did just as we preliminaries this week. This is the basic outline go to the bank with, and then we will bring, once we receive responses, we'll bring back for council's consideration and public hearings, issue the debt. So there'll be additional public hearing. Have any input or questions you have? We wanted to bring this now, see, what you thought before we went out. So with that, I'll
Any questions for Mr. Whitley?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the memorandum in discussion.
I'll correct that issuance memorandum since it
Bond is a debt, but okay.
just approve the concept. Because we'll bring back ordinances.
Did I say?
We said issuance memorandum, so this.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Discussion that we've had before. Again, we're having another discussion about spending money and getting some general idea. You did a good presentation, but and we're talking about it with basically 10 minutes to go before 11 o'clock, where we have to, and it's basically a large direct money, and again, based on expenditures that we're looking to march on and support it.
I should that this packet on the website, receive it and available, and there has be some initiative and effort on the part of the platform themselves as well. Councilor Kelly.
I wasn't going to say anything else, but I have to comment on that. Your job not to sit. That it's your job to look at this, and they do have. It's our job. A way to bring as we possibly can, and to take a vote on something, just a concept we had before. I'd like to have with the general public in a work session or a public hearing what we're spending money on over the next 5 years. To vote on something to get the staff going to go to with 10 minutes to 11 when nobody's frankly watching what's going on and nobody's had.
Thank you, Mr. Approve this concept that will for additional approval of this.
Yeah.
Okay. Please cast your vote. City Manager's update, Mr. Cameron?
Yes, one quick included in your packet. The City School Board recently commissioned a study to school enrollment projections. The school facility assessment report, which was conducted last night, the school board received the consultant and heard his presentation. I handed to you that document. Next month or so, with the school board and the consultant. I think it's very good and discuss before we get too far. Capital. That's.
Thank you. That was indeed a very interesting presentation. Also to hear it. And it's information wanted, information to deal with as things that Mr. Kelly is talking about, needs. For this body, we are adjourned.